Ladies and gentlemen, this is White Lightning 777, and I'm here to discuss a rather contentious subject. Gotten into quite a few arguments with people on Gab about the whole Jewish question and what do we do with them? Do they belong in the right wing? Should we red pill the Jews? Of course, the answer is obviously yes. We should red pill everybody. That's the way it is. And we have to remember that, there is a rising tide of anti-Semitism on the left. I mean, it hasn't escaped notice of Jewish students or even the average American that a Jew simply can't go into any blue state type college without being harassed, without being called a colonizer, and all of these other types of absurd things. You've been, for better or for worse, you've been grouped in with white nationalists and white people in general. And the same things that are being done to disadvantaged whites from Kentucky and to working class people that has a detrimental effect on them is also now being done to you, courtesy of the infested woke trash left. We have to understand that piety itself and a love of history itself is being attacked by the left. Now, you might not think, if you see some leftist or maybe even some misguided Jewish leftist attacking somebody for, say, going to a Confederate grave or reenacting the Civil War or attacking a Japanese person for going to a shrine worshiping their ancestors, you may not think that that has anything to do with you, but it does. Because the same mentality that enables them to attack the history of other people can also be used against you. You see, Judaism has a long and storied history. That's the point. Okay? I can assure you, if they don't want anybody who attacks somebody for dressing up in a Civil War uniform and blowing a bugle and reenacting some battle, will also attack a rabbi blowing a shofar horn at Yom Kippur or some other holiday. Okay? And let me lay out my biases here. I'm not a Zionist. I'm not an anti-Zionist. I am exactly neutral. Israel is one small province in a vast American empire that we sort of lucked into, sort of halfway got mired in, and it's not quite clear whether it will bury us or we will bury it. That's the way it is. But the Hamastards are taking over the left. Okay? I don't think that, Ben Shapiro is going to be having a plantation, whipping thousands of slaves and colonizing the world. Okay? But that's exactly what the left thinks of you. Okay? When they see a rabbi or they see a large Orthodox Jewish family, or even a large Orthodox Christian family for that matter, they see Scarlett O'Hare whipping her slaves. That's all you are to them. And there is no reason to become aligned with a cause that is subjecting you yourselves to reverse discrimination. Let me show you something. Marx wrote this on the Jewish question. I don't know why this thing's showing up as a mirror image, why it's filming in mirror, but, the camera does weird things at times. But he wrote this tract written by Marx, and this is an entire book about a tract that Marx wrote, formed the blueprint for Mein Kampf. There is a reason why Hitler didn't have a bibliography in Mein Kampf or his later book Ich Kampf, okay? Because he was using Marxist and Jewish sources for his material, using it as a weapon against you. The left has simply done the same thing. That's all they are, and that's all they will ever be, are anti-Semites. The left in America started the Ku Klux Klan. Even these same Klansmen were the same people that lynched the lady killer Leo Frank and caused the formation of the ADL. But again, there are mistakes on both sides. Yes, of course, it is wrong for people to claim that an insect-borne disease such as the bubonic plague, which is we know today is carried by fleas, that somehow it was spread by Jews pouring blood into the wells or whatever. That's just not the case. A disease that is adapted to exist on the inside of an insect cannot exist in a body of water because the conditions in an open or stagnant water are not the same as those inside the body of a small parasitic insect. I mean, that's basic evolution. We know that that's not true. But there are also mistakes on both sides. Certain passages in the notorious passages from Sanhedrin that are often quoted, the sexual abuse of children under 3 is nothing, or that that they somehow don't suffer. We know objectively that that's not the case. In fact, the abuse of a child under 3 is everything. In fact, modern science has shown that the first 3 to 5 years of life are extremely important in the formative years of a child. And if abuse does happen to children, that is extremely devastating and can induce trauma for life. We know that that's true. Now, granted, they didn't know that in the 2nd and 5th century when the Talmud was written. But again, there are certain things in there that need to be not excised and hidden, because if you cover it up, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. But there are certain things that need to be redlined and removed or declared anathema or just declared it or just inactivated, kept for historical references only. I mean, if you look at that song, My Darling Clementine, there's a reason why the 2nd verse to that song isn't sung anymore. We don't hide it. It's part of American history, but we just don't use it when we sing that particular song. And the same thing can be done for those politically incorrect and kind of batshit crazy passages. Now look, all 3 of the Abrahamic religions have, for lack of a better term, batshit crazy homicidal bullshit contained within them, because they were written thousands of years ago in cultures where the value of human life was not what it is today, and the understanding of the fragility of the human condition was not what it is today. Children were thought of as just miniature adults. They're not. Women were thought to be, severely mentally retarded. They're not. We just know more. And the science, should reflect that. We're not saying not to have traditions. We're not saying not to speak Hebrew or anything else. But, there are things in there that the anti-Semites complain about that really have no business in anywhere in the modern world. And especially double standards when it concerns how you treat people or other people's property or perhaps violent interactions between people. Human rights should be thought of as universal. And individuals but we have to also understand that cultures and races differ. The left loves to praise diversity and loves to talk about diversity until they confront the very facts of diversity. They claim they love diversity, but if you show them that some cultures are more dysfunctional than others, if I point out that Palestinian Christians, for example, are a model minority in the United States that performs almost as well as Indian Americans or Japanese Americans, but that their Muslim counterparts are violent, they commit crimes, and oftentimes and have even groomed there. If I point out that cultural diversity matters, they run for the hills. I'm Antiochian Orthodox. I go to church with Palestinian Christians every Sunday. They're being run out on the rails. One person said, imagine that movie Jurassic Park Lost World, where the Indominus Rex is fighting with the T-Rex, and imagine being forced to stand in the middle of them and not being able to move. That's what it's like being a Christian over in the Middle East. And they're trying to get the hell out of there, and I don't blame them. Reminds me a lot about how certain family members of mine had to flee the Soviet Union because, they were Polish and they were involved in the Solidarność organization. The Soviets were going to put her in front of firing squads. I mean, that can happen to you. A person can become estranged from their government and they have to leave. That's just a fact of life. And of course, many Jews themselves have very similar stories. But again, we're not the enemy. But there are also possibly in the bell curve itself, I'd like to see some more supporting data. There is a paucity of research, and a lot of the studies on race and intelligence are old, and they were made in transitional periods from agrarian to post-industrialized society, and they were done, and it's hard to see whether a lot of these studies captured transitional effects or whether they captured genuine genetic differences between races. Okay, more research is needed. However, and it would be very beneficial if studies were done to have someone do a 23andMe and then just give them a couple of different kinds of IQ tests, some more culturally biased and some culturally unbiased, just to see what happens and to see what the results are. That would be beneficial, but there's no appetite for that kind of research. Having said all that, there's no reason why every group of human beings has to have an exact IQ of 100. We know Jews have a higher IQ, especially in the verbal areas, and in particular, than the average population. This is no secret. Okay? It helps in the legal field. It helps in terms of getting elected. It helps in terms of Hollywood and stuff. And, there's nothing wrong with, if you are, 10,000, if you're like in the 99th percentile or something, there's no reason not to use that to help your career. Okay? But many leftist Jews in particular made a horrible decision and decided they were going to bet on the less culturally or less genetically advanced races against other Europeans and viewing Asians with suspicion. This is a tragic mistake. When you look at groups that don't do as well on the bell curve, for whatever reason, culturally or genetically, doesn't matter why, they don't do as well. They also are more likely, if your average IQ is 83, for example, well, you're more likely to be superstitious. You're more likely to fall for misinformation. You're more likely to fall for conspiracy theories. You're more likely to resort to violence and to use your fists when you run out of words because you're going to run out of words sooner. Betting on these less advanced peoples and cultures to the detriment of other Caucasians and other higher order or more acculturated civilizations of people is a tragic mistake that has exposed Jews as well as all other Americans to a much higher crime rate. You bet on the wrong horse. Okay? What needs to happen in the long run is Jews, white Gentiles, and Asians, like especially the Oriental type, Indians, Hindus, people like that are actually taxpayers and actually the productive members of society need to come together as a unit. We need to stop quarreling among ourselves, and we need to go after the parasites and after the criminals that are making our lives a living hell, and hold the politicians that import these third world degenerates that are not fit to live in a first world civilization responsible. As far as I'm concerned, if you're a politician and you run a sanctuary city and let's say 5,000 people a year overdose on fentanyl or cocaine from, the third world, in that country, you're responsible for those deaths. You ought to be lined up and shot. You're a traitor. Just because you didn't poison them yourself doesn't mean you didn't kill them yourself. When people even say, well, Hitler was a murderer, do you think Hitler personally was getting his hands dirty, throwing all those people into gas chambers? Of course not. He had underlings do it. Same with Stalin. Same with Mao. Lenin I don't even know, Stalin now. I mean, those three dictators, I mean, they may never have even killed anybody for all I know. But they're still responsible for the deaths of millions of people. And supporting this leftist nonsense is ridiculous. Karl Marx wrote that pamphlet on the Jewish question and provided Hitler with the blueprint for Mein Kampf. Nazism is centered in and a product of Marxism. Intentional or not, without socialism, you can't have National Socialism without the socialism part. It doesn't work. At best, Hitler would have been reduced to putting on medieval-style passion plays that had lost much of their potency by that period of time. So people, we need the more productive members of society and more productive groups of people need to stop this infighting, stop this backbiting among ourselves, become nationalistic, support our countries, support strong borders, strong law enforcement, have large families, and yes, go practice your religion. And if if you're disenfranchised with Judaism and that doesn't work for you, hey, go to your local Orthodox Christian church. In fact, some of the Oriental Orthodox churches retain a lot of the Jewish laws, and if anything, an Orthodox Jew might be more comfortable in the Coptic Church than they would in the Antiochian or Russian Orthodox or Catholic Church, for all I know. I mean, because they have a lot of the same shibboleths and they've retained a lot of those laws. But be that as it may, we have to stop attacking piety. We have to stop attacking reverence for history. We have to stop infighting with each other. We need to back America, back our republic, back Donald Trump, and become red-pilled. Leftism is rat poison to Jews and Gentiles, and I guarantee you, if aliens invaded, you know what I would do? I would give them a copy of the Communist Manifesto and tell them that was the perfect solution to all their problems. Their civilization would go to hell in a handbasket. They'd fall to pieces within a month. Yeah. It would, because communism doesn't work. It's a failed ideology, and if you look at the monstrosity that is the CCP, and you look at the monstrosity that was the Soviet Union, and you look at the fact that an entire political party, the Democrats, are just an appendage of the Chinese Communist Party, and they're not even Americans, they're all foreign agents. Why the hell would any nice Jewish boy or girl be involved with that shit? What the hell would you be doing involving it with those kind of people? Those people are ghouls. These people have forced organ harvesting. They run concentration camps. They have more death camps than Nazi Germany. Mao Zedong killed 60 million people. That's 10 times the freaking Holocaust. Why the hell would you have any involvement with leftism or communism? This is ridiculous. This is insane. If you're involved with this and you're Jewish, you're just a putz. You're an idiot. And this attack on capitalism, and if you attack big business, whose businesses do you think they're talking about? Do you think that the left is upset about a bunch of snake handling moonshiners in Kentucky? They have their King James Bible and their non-denominational church. No, such people aren't a threat to them. They're going after Jewish lawyers, Jewish bankers, Jewish hospitals. They're going after your money. They're going to steal your damn money. They're going to these people are going to steal your money and waste it in ways that drunken sailors couldn't even imagine. What the hell? And anybody of any traditional religious faith, anybody who's in Abrahamic religion that is traditional, that actually believes in God, that actually believes that piety is an important thing, that has prayer ropes and uses prayer ropes every day, that reads these texts, has no business being involved with woke trash scum. The woke mind virus must be destroyed. In other words, Jews need to get out of the Democrat plantation, leave, become Republican, become red-pilled, support the Republic. It's good for you, it's good for us, and yes, form alliances with other people and other groups that are traditional and that are also under attack. Understand, if you see somebody, the same person that may desecrate a Christmas tree, okay, or tear down a menorah, okay, it's the same person that will set a synagogue on fire or burn or desecrate the Talmud, okay? The mentality is the same. And yeah, the right does have a few Nazi types, sure. But most of these groups aren't actually self-supporting. Most of these so-called Klan groups and Groypers and all that stuff is supported by the ADL and the feds. Stop giving money to these assholes. Why is it that not all the time, but all too often, when you look at where the Klan gets their money from, or where the left gets their money from, or where some ghoulish abortion clinic gets their money from, well, all too often it's Jewish money. It's not a good look. And the fact is, there's no actual left-wing ideology. The only reason people become leftist is to have sex with children and worship the devil. That's their only agenda. There's no there there. There's no path to liberation there. They don't have any vision. The only thing that communism and socialism is based upon is envy, is the 7 deadly sins. That's all that they are. I mean, okay, now that's more New Testament stuff, but you can research what the deadly sins are, and whether you think Christ is the Messiah or not. I mean, I personally think he is. I'm rolling the dice and betting on my soul on him. You can disagree, but when it comes to those 7 deadly sins, I don't think that anybody can say that Christians don't have valid points that those are bad, and you shouldn't have an entire political system based on envy. It's not a good idea. And, individuals who continue supporting communism should be destroyed. I mean, if you look at people, successful anti-communists, Franco, Pinochet, for example, are the two more famous ones, they didn't waste their time on Justeria and wild conspiracy theories about the Pentecost, the elders of Zion, or whatever. They just went and killed a crap ton of commies. And they kept doing it until the commies decided they were going to go away. Israel helping out Pinochet and subsidizing Chile and Jews going back and forth. Hey, that was a good thing. You could be involved in, the right-wing nationalism is not inherently anti-Semitic. I just gave you 2 examples of dictatorships that threw their arms wide open to Jews. Of course, well, now, if you happen to be communist and you happen to be Jewish, well, you weren't going to get any special treatment. You were going to get thrown out of the helicopter like anybody else, okay? And you deserved it because communists aren't even human as far as I'm concerned. They're just filthy, disgusting scum anyway. And you don't want them in your house. And if you look at what's happening in the public schools, transing the kids and stuff, trust me, in 5 years, it'll be in the yeshivas too. It'll come into your synagogues. It'll get you too. You can't have a deteriorated, rotten, filthy, corrupt culture around you and expect the rot to not creep into your homes and your places of worship, because it will. Because stuff like that is rat poison. It's infectious. The woke mind virus is very much infectious. And the infested must be forced to surrender or die. Civilization itself depends on it. Even when you look at Israel, why did the October 7th attacks happen? Well, the government started telling people, well, you can't keep a full auto Uzi in your house. Just have a semi-automatic. You can only have 50 rounds of ammo. They got done. The Israeli army was for many, many years slowly kind of queering up and dumbing down. Lost their fire. And the terrorists, They smelled blood in the water and they pounced. That's what happened. Don't do that. That's stupid. Everybody should be armed. Everybody should have guns. All law-abiding people should be armed. Period. And if you can get a permit and you don't have one, you're stupid. If you can get a permit and you don't have one and some skinhead hits you with a crowbar, well, good. You deserve it. Because you're an idiot. You're not availing yourself fully of the rights available to you under our system of government. Everybody should be armed. And everybody should be patriotic. Okay? I mean, I understand there's certain things like pronouncing the name of God and saying a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Well, you're not really saying the tetragrammaton. You're not really pronouncing the actual, Yahweh or the actual Hebrew name of God. It's just the English word, so it's not that big of a deal. It shouldn't be that much of a problem. It can compromise a little bit. But, I mean, Jews need to be red-pilled. Jews need to quit backing or associating themselves with third world degenerates. And the fact is, barbarians squat in their filth because they choose to. Idiots choose to live on welfare. They choose to stick fentanyl in their veins. They choose to not pull up their pants. They choose to live like trash because they are trash. And somehow validating that decision doesn't help you, and it doesn't help them. If you see a barbarian or a savage grunting, "Well, why's my kid have to get shot just because he robbed a store? The police are bad." Well, guess what? They also think the Jews are bad. The answer is, listen up, you dumb Negro Nazi supremacist moron. You did this to yourself. And yes, if your son robs a store, he should be shot. Yes, if you resist arrest, the police should kill you. Because if you're going to fight with an armed police officer, God only knows what you're going to do to a small child or a little old lady. Okay? Or maybe a nice Jewish kid taking his books back and forth to yeshiva school. Who the hell knows? What are you going to do? We need to quit supporting filth and degeneracy and start supporting America. Jews need to leave the Democrat plantation, become right-wing, and back Trump and the Republic, and we will be standing with you shoulder to shoulder and warmly welcome you into the right side of history and into the civilized world. This is White Lightning 777. Long live the Republic.